Hey everyone, it's Kevin Jones with Life, Mind, and Money. For those thinking about buying a home, whether you are a first-timer or a seasoned veteran, the process can be quite lengthy. And I want to make sure that you understand some financial considerations before diving in. Many people can find themselves trapped, and I want to make sure that if you're going to buy a home, you're doing it right. Also, be familiar with the terminology so that when you do start going down that road, the process is an easy one and you understand the market. If you haven't already done so, or love the content you're receiving, I would highly recommend you to subscribe to this channel. I would certainly appreciate it. For all you first-time home buyers, I can only imagine the excitement of thinking about having your first home. I mean, I remember having my first home. The market was hot, everybody was diving in, mortgages were being handed out like candy. It was an amazing time. But when we finally did to buy that home, suddenly we had to change jobs and move states. And then the market tanked. And then everybody was fleeing. And then the prices were dropping. And we found ourselves in an absolutely horrible situation because we put nothing down on that first mortgage. Soon we found ourselves in quite a hole because our mortgage was far outpacing what the house was worth and we were in the negative. Yes, as you could imagine, this is going back to between 2006 and 2008 when the market spiked and then it fell very quickly. As we all know, it's called the Great Recession. And I found myself dead smack in the middle of it. And I think we know the rest of history on what happened with this situation. I don't want to see anybody go through the same situation that I did. I found myself trapped and I didn't know what to do. So I want to go through some key financial things to consider and also terminology. So when you are ready to go down that home buying journey, it's a good one and you're prepared for all that you may encounter while owning that home. Now, the first thing we need to talk about in buying a home is a mortgage. Almost all of us will need a mortgage to make this kind of purchase. And it is the leading product to buy real estate. A mortgage can be obtained by any bank or financial institution. And frankly, you can go online and simply fill out a form to get one as well. There are many options out there. Now, there are three things that you need to keep in mind when seeking out a mortgage. The first is the length of term. Second is what is the interest rate you can obtain. And lastly, what kind of down payment can you bring to the sale? First, we have heard of 30-year mortgages, but there are others out there like 15 and 20-year mortgages as well. There are also other forms of mortgages out there, but the ones that you really should only focus on are the fixed year ones. And that's what we're going to speak about today. While the 30-year mortgage is a good place for many, I really want you to step back and think about your own budget and what you truly can afford. When looking at monthly payments on a theoretical home that you want to buy, I would first look at the 15-year mortgage and see what that monthly payment is. If you can see that working into your budget, and frankly not taking up more than 30% of your total monthly budget, then I feel like you probably could buy the home. While I recognize that you may end up going into 20 or most like a 30-year mortgage, you really should base your numbers on that 15-year one because you don't want to overbuy. And if you can't meet that 15-year mortgage at the 30% threshold, then you're probably buying a home well beyond your means and you probably should downsize or look for a home that's a bit cheaper. Next thing we need to talk about is interest rates. Interest rates are moving daily. I can't tell you how fast these things move around. And the market will determine how they go up or down, and you really never know what's next. And the interest rate that you get is based on how long of a term that you want on that mortgage, but really more importantly is what is your credit score and your history in order to determine how you handle debt. If you check out my video above, we talk exactly about credit score, and that is why you really need to keep tabs on it Because when you're buying things like a house and you need a mortgage, your credit score is so important in this situation. When you're thinking about getting a mortgage, you should be absolutely focusing on making sure your credit score is high as possible, because that will give you the lowest rate in the market. Even though that interest rates are at historic lows right now, if you've got a bad credit score that's really down in the toilet, your interest rates will spike very quickly, and it may price you out from ever getting a mortgage in the near future. Lastly, we need to focus on down payment, and this is an extremely important subject. If you're a first-time home buyer, there's an FHA program run by the government that allows you to get a mortgage for only 3.5% down. Now that might sound attractive, but anybody buying a home should be putting at least 10% down towards that transaction. Now think about it. If you're going to be making one of the biggest investments of your life, you need to prove to yourself that you can put cash aside for this venture. Honestly, if you've got 20%, do it. And here's why. When you get a mortgage and you have less than 20% down, with that ratio, they're going to charge you an additional fee on top of your mortgage called PMI, and that's called private mortgage insurance. And that's a protection for the banks because you don't have a lot of money invested in the whole transaction. And once you reach that 20% above, the PMI will eventually go away. But that's just one additional cost in the process. So really think about it. If you can't put at least 10% down, a major investment of money towards that house, then I would advise you to stay away from buying a home at this moment and start piling cash away, because you've got to prove to yourself that you're ready for this. And I can't tell you how important it is when buying your next home. Just think about the situation that I was when I put zero down in my first home purchase and all of the trouble I got myself into. So now that you understand a mortgage and how your finances stack up in the home buying process, and you really do feel like you're ready to go down that journey, then you need to seek out a real estate agent. A real estate agent is your partner in buying that home, and they'll make sure that everything is taken care of along the way. There's a lot going on in the process and also legalities involved, and that's why you never want to do this on your own. Also, you don't have to worry about payment, because in most situations, the real estate agent's commission is paid by the seller during closing when you finally get that home in your hands. So just make sure that you go find a real estate agent that you're comfortable with and let them hold your hand throughout the process, because it will make this whole deal much smoother along the way. As you're going about trying to identify your future home, you're also going to have to go get what's called a pre-approval letter from a lender. It doesn't take very long to go get one, but the application is quite lengthy. But it's also done so that they can determine exactly how much money they're willing to lend you and at what interest rate. So the application process is long because they need to look at things like credit history and employment history and what income is coming into the household and a variety of other factors. This letter is proof to the seller that you have the financial means to actually make this purchase happen today. Once you've found your dream home, you now need to submit an offer to see if you can buy the home. And your real estate agent will work with that offer sheet. Within the offer sheet, you have to set basically how much you're willing to pay, any terms, and concessions that you want as part of the transaction. And that is signed and submitted. And this formally begins the negotiation part. The seller at that point has three options. They can either accept, deny, or counter. And each of these submittals has a time limit for when one of these actions can be made. And this process will go back and forth like a ping pong ball until hopefully there's an agreement to buy the home. Once the agreement has been made, then the transaction goes into what's called pending, and that moves us into the next situation. So now you're under contract for the home. Congratulations! But now you need to enter what's called an inspection period, which is part of most contracts. They usually last about 10 days. And within those 10 days, you have the ability to bring in an expert to examine the entire home and then find out if there's any repairs that need to be done. Once you attain that list, you have the ability to then ask for cash from the seller or anything that you want to be done before the close of the home. This is extremely important to take advantage of this period because you have no idea what you will uncover. And so you want to make sure any of those things are taken care of before you take possession. Now, assuming that all repairs have been done and those dates are set, you now will determine a closing date. The closing date is when all of the transaction happens, when the money changes hand through escrow and it's recorded for the official names to be on the deed. Most closing dates are usually between 3 and 6 weeks from when you sign that initial contract. You will then go to the title company on the date of closing and sign a massive pile of documents and frankly sign your life away. I can't tell you the amount of documents you will sign, especially when the first time you do it, because you'll be there literally an hour and your hand's really gonna be worn out. At that point, your real estate agent will hand you the key and the home is yours. It is a lengthy process to buy a home, but I want to make sure that you know exactly what's going to happen along that road. Buying a home is by far one of the biggest investment or purchases you will ever make in your life. Lastly, while the mortgage will by far be the biggest piece involved when buying a home and will be your largest expense, there are other things that you need to be involved when budgeting to buy that home as well. First off, you need to think about is homeowners insurance and property taxes. These things can range anywhere from 10 to 40% on top of what you're paying a month for that mortgage. So please be prepared when you're figuring out your own budget when buying a home. Home ownership is not cheap, and that is why you need to be financially prepared, like we talked about earlier in this video, before you ever think about taking on this kind of investment. So I hope you found this video informative, really thinking about the process involved in buying that home, but more importantly, the financial considerations involved. I can't tell you how many expenses you will encounter owning a home well beyond your mortgage, so please be prepared. Thanks for watching, and in Life, Mind, and Money, we focus on money. Buying a home will by far be one of the biggest investments any of us will ever make. So I want to make sure that you have a solid down payment and also you understand your budget and you've got the income to not overextend yourself. As you saw with my own personal example, I bought a house at the top of the market and I dug myself a massive hole that took years to get out of. I don't want to see anybody go through that similar situation. If you haven't done so, please smash that like button as it's fun and it takes on that YouTube algorithm. Also, I want to hear from you, so please leave your comments below. And lastly, if you haven't done so, please subscribe to the channel, as I appreciate your support and will continue to provide new videos every Monday and Thursday. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.